I think for me, it's not quite an imposter piece, but you always have this niggling self-doubt about yourself that, oh my God, I can't be this person. I can't do that. And for me, that's driven me to be really proactive about learning constantly. So I put a huge amount of my accomplishments down to the fact that I dedicate time every single day to learn.
You're listening to the Rich State of Mind Show, the podcast made to make you the total package in the entrepreneurial world and give you what we call a rich state of mind. If you are here looking to learn about real estate investing, marketing, elevating your business, and developing your mindset to get to the next level, then you are at the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join our community on richstateofmind.com. Now here's your host, Anthony Ritchie.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Rich State of Mind, where I'm talking to Raman Sehgal. He's the founder of several niche companies, including Ramarketing, which is a multimillion-dollar international agency that helps companies get noticed in the global life science space. So whether you're an entrepreneur, marketer, pharmaceutical company, bio, or tech supply owner, or any founder of any company, he can help you scale your business to heights that you were trying to get to. So as always, please enjoy this episode and thank you for listening. Hey, Raman, thanks for taking the time this morning for me, afternoon for you over in the UK or closer to Scotland. What's it called? What'd you say? It's where are you at?
So I'm in the northeast of England, and it's about just up past lunchtime here in the UK. So not too far from Scotland.
Yeah. And so we're here to talk about marketing, entrepreneurship, businesses. And I really want to hear, what you have to say. Like I said, I did, looked at some of your videos, and I love your story and your perspective on what it takes to actually be successful. So if you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on as a guest. It's a pleasure being here. So I appreciate the honor of being a guest. So yeah. So for background, my name is Raman, and I wear a few different hats, I suppose, but the one that's really, I suppose, accelerated my life is I'm the founder of a company called Ramarketing. We're an international design digital marketing agency, but we specifically focus on the life science and pharmaceutical kind of ecosystem. So that makes us like not only niche, but like super niche, if that makes sense. So that's been 13 years this week, in fact, since I started that business. And I'm proud to say that it's grown to about 65 people based in North America and Europe. We're one of the leading, if not the leading agency of our type in the world now. And during that time, I've started another couple of projects. So I have another business, which is talent acquisition, that works in the same sector. That company's called Lead Candidate. I am a podcaster like yourself, and I'm the host of a very niche podcast called Molecule to Market, which again focuses on the kind of pharmaceutical supply chain. And as of the back end of January earlier this year, I became a best-selling author of a book called The Floundering Founder, which was very much made of the lessons and mistakes that I've made on my journey, which I wanted to share with other founders and entrepreneurs that are feeling stuck or in a rut in their own life, and that it might help them navigate their business and their personal life. So that's me in a nutshell.
And so you spoke about, pretty much niching down your company. How does somebody do that?
Yeah, good question. It's funny because I'd say it's quite a well-trodden path today, but I don't think it was, 10 years ago. And so for me personally, how that came about was, we started life as a relative generalist in what we did. And then, we did some analysis, and I'll talk through what that analysis was, but worked out actually all our best clients, all our favorite clients, and where we made our money was actually in the kind of pharmaceutical life science space. So we effectively decided just to focus on one market and go big on it. And there's, in chapter 2 of the book, I actually talk about something called a client matrix, which it's almost like a framework where if you have a small business, service business, say you've got 50 clients, you can plot your clients in these four quadrants, which are, high profit, low profit versus high profit, high maintenance. And, on the whole, you want high profit, low maintenance clients, right? You don't want high maintenance, low profit clients. But that discipline of doing that analysis enabled me to see where the opportunity lay in terms of our existing companies. And then that was kind of the pivot point for us to just focus on that space. And certainly in my career, I've found that focusing on niches makes you much more relevant and meaningful to an audience. When you're not trying to be everything to everyone, which I think a lot of companies start out and try to do that. And you can end up chasing business and running after opportunities that are just not right for your business. So yeah, I mean, that exercise in the book is one that enables people just to take a step back, look at what they're doing, and allow them to kind of focus on one specific niche.
You had me smile when you said high profit, low maintenance, because you reminded me, and this is on like a smaller scale. So I guess for anybody that wants to start small, I have a spare garage at one of my rental properties, and there's this app called Neighbor where you can pretty much rent out your space for anybody to park their car or boxes. And so I have somebody that parks their car inside of the garage for like $200 a month. I have renters, and those two guys, they don't give me any problems, right? Those are probably the highest incomes of that particular property. Well, I let one guy stay in, let him put his boxes in the garage because I had some more space in the garage for like $44 a month. And he was my highest headache, like over $44. So he was like low maintenance. He was high maintenance, low profit. And sometimes I noticed that the low profit almost is synonymous with the high maintenance sometimes, which is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, for any of your listeners, I think, look at your clients and look at your customers. And I suspect the ones that cause you the most pain, the ones that are buzzing on your iPhone at 10 o'clock at night and you're like, oh, I do not want to pick up this phone right now. Like, unless that client is the highest profit client, they should not be causing you that level of pain. And so, I learned this the hard way. I remember years ago, we had a client, and I describe it as, in their mind, they were buying a Ferrari, but actually what they were buying was like a Toyota Corolla, like a 1990 Toyota Corolla. And that project was, one of those that when we got underway, it became very clear very quickly, the expectation levels were wildly apart. And, and that was down to, that was my fault. That was our mistake because I didn't qualify this client, right? I got carried away because it was a new sector. They were in London. It was like, this could be cool. They could plug us into new networks without actually thinking about, well, is this a good fit for our business? Are we aligned with what the scope of work is? And it ended up being the worst project that we've ever had. And what came out of that is what we call like a defense checklist. It's almost like a vaccine that we have, which is there to protect us from bad clients. And, and I have to say, all of our clients that we have today are fantastic clients, but it's because they're the right fit for our business. So again, for some of your team, some of your listeners, when you're faced with an opportunity, don't just follow the dollars, right? Like it doesn't always work out if you just chase the money. Really think about, can you meet this client's expectations? Are they going to be reasonable and fair? Is the budget aligned? Can you deliver what they want in the timing? Like, if you are sitting there thinking, oh God, I don't think we could actually do this, that's not a good place to start. Having said that, I know, when you're first starting out, you just have to take a chance. You have to roll the dice. But as your business starts to grow, I'd certainly encourage people to qualify buyers a bit better, and it makes your life a lot easier if you have less of these high maintenance clients.
No, yes, you're right. As my wife would say, all money's not good money. And for me, my frame of reference is real estate investing. And so like my short-term rental, I gave discounts at the beginning because I was trying to get people in there so I can get my 5-star ratings. But now it's very, very tight. on that.
Yeah.
Because you lower that value, and then now that lets in people that are going to probably cause you headache. And unfortunately, it's the way it is. But
you're right. And actually, I have a couple of rental properties as well. And when we lived in the US over the last few years, the house that I'm talking to you from now is our home in the UK, and we rented this property out. And what was fascinating in the 3 years we were in the US, we had 3 different tenants, right? And the first guy was the highest rent and an absolute nightmare. He complained about everything, so even though he was the guy that paid the highest, he was a nightmare. And actually we managed to kind of part ways pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know how often this happens in the US, but you just one day left the keys and said, all right, I've gone, without caring the fact that he had a 1-year contract that he had to fulfill. He just left the keys and him and his family moved out. It was absolutely crazy, right? Like you can't just do that. But whereas on the flip side, during COVID, we had a family in this property who I don't think they paid the highest rent, but I don't think we heard from them for like a year. We'd check in like through the agent just to make sure they were okay and everything was okay. And what an absolute delight. So I suppose not to contradict what I said before, but just because someone's paying the highest, I mean, I'm sure you've had it in your experience. Sometimes when they're paying the highest price, they have the highest expectations.
The highest expectations, like you said, they felt like well, I guess in this case, hey, I know I bought a Ferrari and I want Ferrari value.
Exactly.
And so, we've talked about clients. So, how do you handle client expectations?
It's a good question. And for us, it comes at it through the business development and commercial process, right? When you're first meeting potential clients, and we work in a B2B service sector, so we don't have products in the traditional sense, but a lot of what we do is, talk to the client and understand their problems first and foremost. So we do a very deep consultative selling approach to really understand where the client is, what they want to achieve, and then make sure we are qualified to achieve those things. And then, when we're doing a proposal, we'll make it really, really clear. We will document all that kind of stuff and explain that to the client to make sure that everyone is aligned. The scope of work and the contract will also reflect that. And then we do, and I think for a lot of companies that have like a business development team and then a delivery team, the handover then to the delivery team who have to deliver this project is really detailed as well, where we basically go through the client's expectations, what they're trying to achieve, also, the potential to grow the client. And then we make sure that we stick to that kind of plan. And in our business as well, within, a month 1, month 3, month 6, there'll be a senior check-in as well with the client to make sure, hey, are we delivering what we said we had delivered? And it doesn't always go right. It's funny, when I logged on today and I had not checked my emails today, I've got an email from our biggest client and it was just said, thank you. So I quickly had it when I was trying to get the Zoom to load. And all the emails, the client gave us some feedback about a month ago, and we've made some changes and we've re-looked at the account team and added a couple more bodies to support the client. And the client just sent a really thank you note saying, they really appreciate the fact that they took on board their feedback and that we've done something about it. So I think on an ongoing basis with clients, just checking in, making sure that you're meeting their expectations and actually staying aligned I think is so important. Where the biggest problems lie, in my experience, is when the longer the time goes on where you're not having those conversations, it's like can be building up in the client, like, oh my God, I'm gonna snap at some point in time. So in our business, we do have we have something like every client is assigned like a senior client partner, and each of those people at least twice a year, but sometimes 3 times a year, we'll just check in with the client. And again, for anyone this is relatively, we've done it for the last couple of years and it's worked really well because you can see issues and head them off at the pass before they become like a train crash down the line. You can say, oh, actually, unless we nip this in the bud and resolve it now, it might become a real issue for the client. So yeah, those are some of the ways that we've managed to, and it's not a perfect formula, right? We don't get it right every time, but on the whole, we've, we're very needy in that we really care about what our clients think about us. Like in all the businesses I run, thinking about customer experience and onboarding and looking after that customer, because these are the these are the same people that are going to refer you, right? These are the same people that are going to pass business your way and, and be your advocates. Like, it's the most important thing in the world. And, in the way I look at it as well is, you can have all the fancy marketing in the world you want. The most kind of bang for your buck you're ever going to get is just a great delivery of your service and product. Because if you deliver really good service and product, people will tell other people, and people will want to recommend you, and they'll give you references, and that is the most, as you know, the word of mouth piece is the most powerful.
And do you feel like that's what separates you from your competition with your team and your customers?
I think it's one of the reasons. I mean, the sector we work in is quite complex, so it's one of the criteria, I think, that when, say, we are pitching for a piece of work, a client will reference check us, and on the whole, they'll have a really positive kind of feedback. I mean, we did an NPS, an external NPS score recently, and I think we were at 80 plus 80, which is kind of off the scale in terms of outstanding. And we worked really, really hard at that. And I think it was 62 the year before, which was also really good. But I think you've just got to be mindful of it again and again and again, and not, don't screw people over. Like, even when projects don't go to plan, like, exit them in the right way. We had that recently. A project just didn't, the CEO of the business, just whatever his reasons were, he didn't feel like we were the right fit. So we didn't kick up a huge issue around the contract. We parted ways. I messaged the CEO and said, hey, look, no hard feelings. Like, this happens in life and business. And I can tell you now that somewhere down the line, we'll probably end up working with that company again, or that person will refer us, because that's business and that's life. Like, not everything works out perfectly, but it doesn't mean you have to burn bridges.
Exactly. Speaking of bridges, how did you bridge yourself from, between the UK and America? How did you internationalize your company? Well,
I mean, I took the unusual step of relocating myself to Boston, Massachusetts. So, the sector that we work in is a very global sector, but the US and the North American market is the biggest market in the world. And I'd seen companies like hire, say, an East Coast sales guy and pay a lot of money for that sales guy. And 9 times out of 10, it didn't work. I didn't see many, because that person was not embedded in the business. They didn't understand the culture of the business. They were there just to get sales, and they didn't care what they were winning. And, once they got their sales, they moved on to the next. And so you had this customer communication and account management challenge where you have a European business trying to service a US client. So I remember I was at Boston Logan Airport, and we had one investor in the business at the time, and we sat having, she was having gin and tonic. I had a $12, $15 beer at the airport, right? Like, so expensive. And saying, I said, I wish I was 30 again, like before we had kids and all that kind of stuff. I would love to come and do this and me and my wife come and move to the US and, give it a go. And it almost feels like startup again, right? And Fiona, my kind of director and investor, was like, why can't you do it? Like, there's nothing stopping you doing it. And I came back and I spoke to my wife, and I was very fortunate that my wife's, she was sick of the amount of traveling I was doing, and she could see that would be an adventure. We had 2 kids at the time. And so we took the decision to move to the US at the end of 2018, start of 2019, and, went through the visa process and, managed to get a visa. And what that allowed us to do, it was very scary. I look back now, arriving in Boston in February is a pretty alien concept from a weather perspective. Like, it gets cold in the UK, but not Boston in February cold. I remember getting off at the airport, and my wife and kids had never been to Boston. They just believed me, and we got off, and it was so cold. And they were like, where the heck have you brought us, right? Like, where is this place? And, but, we managed to settle in, and, we set up shop in Boston, and I started building the team out. And I think one of the things that have been successful is we kind of had these culture, we call them like culture anchors, that the brand values that we live, and making sure that every team member that we had in the US gave out this, conducted themselves in the same way that we would expect of any of our team anywhere in Europe. And as a result of that, there was a real coherence between the European team and the US team, that actually our US team felt just like our European team. They might have slightly different accents or whatever, but it didn't matter. They felt the same. And I think a lot of that was down just because, I was able to kind of instill the way we do things around here to our initial staff. And then that's really helped us. And we didn't divide. So what we didn't do is have, okay, that's the US team and that's the European team. We're all one team. So everyone reports into the UK. So it makes sure that we're like one unified team. So someone in the UK can help someone in the US and someone in the US can help someone in Europe. And like, it's not US managed US clients, because actually our clients are all international. So, and now, we have clients all over the world. So we have clients on the West Coast, East Coast, Central, across Europe and in Asia as well. So managing time zones is a bit of a nightmare at times, but we have flexible working and hybrid working for our team, so they can kind of work around their clients' availability. But and it's also exciting, right? Like that was one of the reasons I wanted to have an international business. Like I love jumping on a plane and flying to different parts of the world. Like I love traveling. Is the reason I started my business. I said to my wife, if we can earn an extra $10,000 a year, we can do another holiday or two. That was about as much strategy that went into the startup. And ironically, it's been the vehicle for my travel all over the world. I've been very fortunate that I get to visit places and see people from all over the world. And that's great from my personal perspective in terms of my own development and learning and appreciation of different cultures and people from all over the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. My wife and I was just talking about that. We want to get to a point where I can at least take a month off and away from everything, and the businesses are still going because we want to travel as well. We actually been looking at not leaving America to live at least for half the year somewhere else.
Good for you. That's it. That would be very exciting.
Yeah, I think it's good for the kids, good to unplug a little bit. I think there's a lot of, in America at least, it's a lot of go, go, go mentality. Some places are more relaxed.
Yeah.
But what life tools and I guess what was your approach in building that American team? Did you feel like it had to be different? Did you kind of feel like you was started from scratch? Like what was that like, starting that up from the ground up?
I wish I could sit here and give you a bunch of tools that worked for me, but you know what? A lot of it was just gut and meeting people and feeling like these were the right people. So one thing I would say is that I chose based on the person rather than their capabilities. So I looked at who I thought would be a good fit values-wise and who would represent us as a business in that I could see potential for growth, as opposed to you can get someone who's technically brilliant but could be an absolute nightmare to deal with and actually very egotistical, and and that can upset the culture. So for me, I think what we had done in the UK was the blueprint for what I needed to do in North America in terms of recruit people with the right moral compass and the right behaviors, and great if they had the relevant experience, but if not, we have an in-house training program where we can take them through that and all that type of thing. And so that would be my kind of, from memory anyway, the kind of way I did it, which was, but also just meeting people, right? I mean, it's funny because I think as entrepreneurs, we network and meet people all the time, and we do not think that's just the way, that's the way we do things, right? But you meet people from other professions and they don't go very far out of their immediate teams, right? Or their family or whatever. Whereas I bet, in a given week, you probably meet 10 new people, 15 new people. And I'm the same. If you've got a podcast, if you're doing business development, if you're out and about in events, you are just constantly meeting new people. So I think that kind of being brave and courageous and just going to events and just showing up, right? Like that, I think that's the secret to a lot of success, is just showing up again and again and again and being consistent. I think is very much part of the formula for success.
And I also think what's difficult is you maintain the culture between two different cultures. So you obviously American culture and UK culture is slightly different. Obviously we all, we speak the same language, but we have different different ways of doing things. And then, but you're able to bring them together underneath the same umbrella. And that I think is pretty awesome. It's not easy to do. Not saying you're downplaying and making it sound like it was easy, but I definitely want people to know, like, hey, that takes time. right? And it takes a lot of communication.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe some checking in. You're doing some
Yeah.
check-ins with each other, making sure everybody has the same values. And I also don't want to forget, you mentioned that your hiring process was based off of their values. What type of are they going to be easy to work with, vice versus necessarily maybe their skills. Obviously you want them to have a base knowledge of what they have to do, but that I think is key, because I remember I failed to mention I'm active duty Navy. So I remember when I first joined the military, I had it actually through half of my career, I've seen it where superiors would shut up about this belligerent high performer because they were so high performing, but they were toxic to the environment. So I'm like, I'd rather have the kid I got to train and that is good to us versus this person who thinks that they're the best thing ever and they're toxic, they're creating a mutiny, within the workspace. And so, you're very right. I think those are two things. The all money's not good money topics that we just talked about, as far as accepting clients. And then when accepting, future employees, picking personality, values, principles over their skills.
Absolutely. And you're right. The example you gave is one we've had a few times where we've had some amazingly creative and technical people, and we do have, and sometimes they're all about themselves and they're not a team player. And to an extent you can get away with it. It's like a sports team. Sometimes you need an absolute superstar, right, in your team, right? But I tell you what, the best superstars in the world are the ones that also play as part of the team. If you look at, I'm sure you saw the Jordan documentary a couple of years ago, the Michael Jordan documentary.
Last Dance.
What a phenomenal superstar, but he still needed, he needed his colleagues. He needed to perform for his colleagues. And he was arguably the greatest individual star of all time in sport. And, you see it across different team sports all the time. Having one star on your team will only get you so far, right? But having a star player who is also kind of a team player, like that's where the magic happens, in my opinion. It's funny because we were chatting the other day as a team. We've got a design and creative team now, which is the best we've ever had. And what's fabulous about it is the people in that team are they're so lovely to work with. They're such nice people. They're respectful. They're polite. They give up, they conduct themselves in a manner in which they kind of show the values that we care about. But they are so talented, it is unbelievable. So, but the magic that's coming from that in our organization is that kind of sets the bar of like, hey, we can be really good people and really good at jobs, and that collective swell of getting that right is great within an organization. And to your point before, like you mentioned a culture piece there, like it doesn't happen by accident and it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, it's like a plant or a tree. You keep watering it, you keep nurturing it. Like we work so hard at our culture piece. It's so important to us to keep that one team methodology and method. We had recently, last Friday actually, we had our entire US team over in the UK, and we had this amazing team event. It was like 55 of us, and it was at a beautiful kind of old stately home kind of building. Like any of the American colleagues were like, whoa, this building's older than our country. But it was, honestly, it was an amazing day to bring everyone together, to do a company update, to kind of do a bit of a pulse check. We did some team building, and we had a few beers and glasses of wine and all that kind of stuff later on in the evening. But it was a great vehicle to just bring people together, especially post-COVID, because we've not been able to do it during the pandemic. So, again, that cost us a lot of money as a business, but actually we see the benefit is bringing everyone together will give us a bounce. It will give us that team kind of bonding piece, which will ultimately lead to, better client experience, more new clients, even more recruits, which is about, that kind of long-term investment that you invest in big now and you'll get those returns in the long term. Just like property, right? Like you've got to go big on property and it might not take years till you make that money. And so it's a similar type of methodology. it's not just trying to get quick wins all the time.
Exactly. I believe that it's all about the long ball game. I know COVID kind of gave people wealth very quickly, for those who are investing in stocks, or even some people in some type of service products that they were providing. I bet you if you started selling masks on Amazon into, late 2019, early 2020, I'm pretty sure you made great money, So I believe that the circumstances just make you have to pivot your business, but the money doesn't just disappear. You just have to try to, change what you're going into. So, somebody said, well, nobody's going out anymore, so I can't, let me not sell umbrellas, but let me sell these masks.
True.
For me, it was setting people up for rental relief programs. Like, that was my business pivot. So I think no matter what somebody's into, whether it's business to business, or business to directly to their customer, B2C, just identifying like, okay, what best serves the environment, the external environment that we're in right now, because we're going to be affected by that.
You're right.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that agility to pivot is a great entrepreneurial trait, right? And it's something that's much easier to do when you're smaller, but for the bigger organizations, that's where it gets a lot harder, where there's a lot of levels and bureaucracy, whereas the way you described it there, you're able to pivot and just take advantage, but also just help people at the same time, which is great.
Exactly. And so, like, I always like to ask everybody this, I'm very curious about yours, is what is your rich state of mind? What's your reason as to why you have this entrepreneurial passion, this very team building spirit? I would, just from talking to you, it sounds like I would love to be on your team. It sounds like it's pretty positive environment.
I'm also a nightmare. I'm also a nightmare to work with. I'm sure my team aren't that positive.
Well, yeah. So, like, we're meeting each other in a very nice, benign environment right now, because it's an interview podcast. But I'm military, right? So, like, I get that thought process. Hey, when it's time to shift into work mode, it's time to shift.
You do, yeah. You're right.
But yeah. So what's your big why?
So I think for me, it's not quite an imposter piece, but you always have this niggling self-doubt about yourself that, oh my God, I can't be this person. I can't do that. And for me, that's driven me to be really proactive about learning constantly. So I put a huge amount of my accomplishments down to the fact that I dedicate time every single day to learn, right? And we have a phrase in our business. We have a mantra, which is be better than yesterday, and that is what I try to do as an individual. It's also what I try to instill in my kids, which is if you can make small iterative improvements every day in different aspects of your life, like over a long period of time, that makes a massive, massive difference. And, there's a phrase I think in the book, which I think Derek Sivers, the author, talks about, saying, people overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but they underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. And I think that's very powerful, because you see it every year. People get New Year's resolutions. I'm gonna lose 50 pounds this year or whatever, right? And then you're like, well, actually, why not try to lose 10 pounds every year for the next 5 years? And you'll probably get there quicker than you think, but actually doing it in a more realistic, iterative fashion. So for me, that's the thing that I think is, to your point, my rich state of mind. It's actually not about material items or anything like that. It's actually about that constant learning piece. And I suppose the other thing at a personal level, I would say, is just experiences and memories. So quite a lot of what I do is with my family and friends is like, let's have amazing experiences and like make memories, because you can't take it with you. And I've been fortunate in the last decade or so to make more money than I ever thought I could. Like, I never set out thinking I could make loads of money or anything like that. And I'm very fortunate. But rather than just, buy a bigger house or buy like jewelry or whatever, like, for me personally, I use that money to try and create amazing experiences that I can enjoy with the people I care about. So that's important to me. So for example, like, my business had a private equity investment recently. So it meant that, that was a positive thing for me personally and as a family. And, so I'm taking some friends to the soccer World Cup, right? Like best friends that we, as kids could never have dreamt of doing it. And I have the means to now go with a few friends, and like, I ain't going to feel the money for what it's going to cost me, but we are going to remember it for the rest of our life. And so, why not? What else should I spend that on? Which I think, it's funny because I think obviously in your world, a lot of what you do is that it's compound interest based, right? It's like little, investments every year lead to, in 10, 20 years time, a multiple. And I think about that in terms of learnings and experiences that just have little good things to look forward to all the time. And over time, you will look back at your life and be like, man, I packed a lot into my life.
Yeah,
and
you're right about that.
One thing I do, which I would recommend. So I journal every day. So I do the 5-minute journal every day. And in the 5-minute journal, like you write like your highlights like of the day. So like at the end of the day, so I might put, I met you and we had this podcast together, for example, like that might make my journal tonight. Depends how the rest of the afternoon goes. But what I then do is at the end of a month or every couple of months, I read the journal back and I write things down. Like I'll like effectively like analyze like myself to an extent, but I'll always write down like the highlights of a given time period, because you easily forget. So since 2015, I have like a list of highlights of like things that have happened in my life and things that we would have completely have forgotten about. Like I can reference back going, oh my God, remember when, we had 25 inches of snow in Boston that day and we all went sledding, whatever it is, like just meaningful memories. And so again, like it's one of the advantages of journaling and reflecting back and just noting down those experiences and memories, because we tend to be quite forgetful as human beings.
Yeah, you got me thinking I need to get back on my journaling, because I want to actually give it to my son at his particular age, so that he can learn from some of the things that I forgot, but I have written it down, some lessons learned. So
great, it's a great idea. I can give you a good suggestion that I did about a month ago, which I don't know where I got this idea from. My dad's in his 80s. And I did a podcast recording with my dad, and I asked my brothers and all the kids in the family all got to give me questions. And I did an 1.5-hour interview with my dad about his life story. And it wasn't for public. It was just for us as a family. So we have this 1.5-hour interview with my dad about his life now that is digitized forever now as for us as a family. So if I look in, my youngest son is going to be 2 soon. Like he probably won't remember my dad, my dad just because of the age my dad's at. But how cool when he's 15, 16 or 20, he's got this little podcast interview of his dad. So away from, I suppose, and I'm looking behind me because this is where all my journals are. You can see a million journals.
Okay.
The technology we have now for podcasting or videos or whatever your medium is, there's no reason we can't capture some of the stuff in kind of almost like in a time capsule. So I think if you're doing that with your son, maybe get your son to interview you as well. That might be quite cool.
That's actually a good idea. There's a lot about me he doesn't know, only because I try to give him give him pieces of me and when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Why, based off my upbringing, my father actually lives only 20 minutes down the road from us, so we're all kind of close. But where can people find you? I want people to find you. I know you have a book, right?
Yeah.
And so
I mean, the book's called The Floundering Founder, which if you go on Amazon and type in that or my name, Raman Sehgal, you'll find me. The book's been well received. I think it's 4.7 stars, 4.8 stars or something like that in the UK and the US. And if you go to ramansehgal.com, it's the domain, you can access all my stuff, the podcast and book and the businesses that I kind of founded there as well, or hook me on LinkedIn as well. I don't really do the other social platforms as much anymore, just 'cause I don't have time. And so I think the LinkedIn's probably the best way for people to connect. But yeah, and thanks. Really appreciate you having me on your show. You do some great work, and it's been an honor to be here to be interviewed by you today.
Yeah, I mean, I love stuff like this. I think I try to focus on, as you've listened, if you've listened to my podcast episodes, you'll probably see like, maybe 60% of it is real estate investing, but the other 40% I like a lot, because it's not about you could be a real estate investor, you could be just in the stocks, or you could be a supplier, a vendor. But if you don't understand business, you don't understand marketing, you don't understand how to deal with your clients, you don't understand how to lead your team, you'll never be able to scale and grow. And that's in any facet of entrepreneurship and business, no matter what you do. So I definitely like to talk about it. I think it's really cool that you have been able to do both markets, the UK and America. It's not easy, and you've been able to successfully do it. So that's why I want people to find you. I want people to read that book, and obviously listen to this podcast episode as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with us from the start of the episode. Please share our show with friends and family, visit our YouTube channel, and view more of our content on richstateofmind.com. See you next week on the Rich State of Mind Show.